So I'd like to welcome you to the Embracing Miracles podcast, and I'd particularly like to welcome Debbie and Dave Marteau, parents of Jack, who died suddenly in 2009. And out of their journey through grief came this book, The English Book of the Dead, which we'll talk a little bit about today. Dave went on a journey to explore mortality in English culture. So welcome, Dave and Debbie. I'm really delighted that you're here with us.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. So,
sorry, can I just say Jack didn't die suddenly? He got hit by a car on a zebra crossing. So he didn't die immediately, but a few hours later he did. Sorry, I just...
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because it sounds as if that bit of time between you hearing about the accident and his death is very, very significant.
It was important for us.
Well, he was in Sicily, so, you know, we had to get to Sicily. It took 12 hours to get there. So, and our daughter was in London and we were in Dorset. So we sort of both went to Heathrow at the same time. We arrived just at exactly the same time. Rosie from London and us from Dorset. And then we got there just in time.
Yeah.
Jack was in a coma, but as you no doubt know, Rachel, one of the last senses to leave us is our sense of hearing. So although he couldn't look at us or turn any muscle, he did actually squeeze Debbie's hand at one point. And so he knew we got there. He just couldn't respond in any other way. And
so it was important for us to know that he knew that we got there in time.
Yes.
Because he must have felt quite lonely, I think, in a foreign country. Yeah. Without any of us there. So yeah, I just whispered it in his ear, did he know we were there? And we got there as quick as we could.
Yeah.
And like Dave said, he squeezed my hand and he moved his shoulder. So I guess he heard me.
Yes. Yeah. So that moment is really treasured by you.
Yeah, it's important to us. Yeah, it is. And we feel deeply sorry for people who haven't had that, who do have absolute sudden death, you know, when they're not present. And so we were able to say our goodbyes, even though Jack wasn't able to say farewell to us. It meant a lot.
Yeah. So
sorry,
it was also sudden insofar as it like burst into your life unexpectedly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that day we got the phone call, that night, it was about midnight. It was sort of it was about midnight, yeah. I'd actually been said to two friends I was the happiest I'd ever felt that day. Which is quite strange. Yeah. I went to see two friends that I hadn't seen for a long time. And just said, you know, I just had my 50th birthday, I think. And I just felt really happy. And Jack was nearly finished uni and we were pretty free then, you know. So we were looking forward. And then you get that phone call, so you know it will change in a second. Yeah. So I felt happy, sort of separate from Jack. So I tried to keep that in my mind, that I was actually feeling happy in myself, whether Jack was around or not, you know.
Yes.
That makes sense. I don't.
Yes, it does. That you'd already identified that something happy was taking place within you, and then you could hold on to that little piece, even in these devastating circumstances.
I tried to think of that, you know, that I was happy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And as you sort of walk this journey, which to some people would sound like a long time now, but of course when you're within the experience, 15 years isn't long, or it's both long and not long.
Yeah.
No, time
it's
has
both long and short. Yeah, it is. You're right.
Well, we did kind of walk the journey, because when it happened, we just walked, and we walked whole countries. You know, we did caminos in Spain and climbed mountains and lived in a tent, and we just stayed outside and stayed away from the home. Some people like to stay at home, but we just wanted to get the hell out of our house.
Yeah. So we've actually got frostbite and hypothermia and, so everything really.
But it suited our mood, People thought we were beating ourselves up, but we weren't. We were just felt wretched. So we thought we might as well walk countries in the winter and things like that,
Like it sounds as if you were like finding experiences that kind of mirrored what you were feeling inside.
Yeah, exactly that. It was sort of, it's sort of an expression of our pain, really, that we were going through these hellish landscapes. wasn't all conscious. I don't think it was all conscious, because we were going to some quite beautiful places as well. But of course, snow and hail and storms and stuff.
So it's just when you said you walked the journey, I thought, yeah, we really did. In those early years. Because I'm a gardener. That's my job, and Dave's a nurse, so mental health. It's a mental health nurse. So we like to be outside. I like to be outside anyway. I don't like being indoors.
Yeah. So that was a natural place to gravitate.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So that was great. And all the time, there's another thing that happens when you're bereaved. I don't know if other people have had the similar experiences. You keep asking yourself, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do? In my mind, I go, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I did that for about 2 years. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And in the end, the answer is, well, stop asking the question. You're going to do the next thing you're going to do. Why ask? And it took me 2 years to stop plaguing myself with this stupid question. And finally, I decided what I should do is do the only thing I'm good at. I'm only good at writing. It's the only thing I can do. I'm useless at DIY. He's an addiction specialist.
He had a national job, nursing post. So you're doing yourself down there.
Okay.
He worked in prisons.
But I wasn't going to put myself in prison for 20 years. I was already in there, you know what I mean, emotionally. So I was trying to work my way out. So I thought, I read loads of books, because, people who write, they always read a lot, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So I read every book I could on death, every book I could on spirituality. I've got the library there. I'll probably never read most of them twice, There are some real good ones in there. And I centered on sort of like Tibetan Buddhism a little, and near-death experiences, accounts of near-death experiences by mainly by academics, by researchers, and that sort of set me thinking, but every book was almost there, but it wasn't quite there. I couldn't quite answer the questions that I had coming in my mind, and I was getting some solace from them, but they weren't absolutely hitting the mark. So I thought, well, I know what I want out of a book, so I just have to write it. So I had to write the book that I wanted, in the hope that other people...
It's a bit of a weird book, really. A lot of people just think, oh dear, it's Dave's at it again, It is a bit out there.
It's very personal, isn't it? It's a very eclectic sort of personal take on what you experience.
It wasn't very personal to start with. I approached it as an exercise, an investigation, exploration of death. But then, because I was going to self-publish, because publishing houses weren't very interested in it, it doesn't really sell mortality. So it suggested to me I should get an editor, just like an objective view, a professional objective view. So I hired an editor, and she came back and said, "It's boring, you who are you? Like, you haven't said enough about yourself." And then I thought, well, she's right. I've been hiding behind all these facts and stories. So then I had to front load the book with loads of stories about how it was in the early days of grief, give a personal account. I was afraid to, because I knew it would really hurt.
Well, so lots of people write books about their child's death. They're all quite similar. We didn't want to make it just about Jack.
No, not just about Jack.
Not just about Jack.
No. No. It's about. I wanted also to understand why so many people ran away from us after Jack died. Including people we knew really well, people I'd worked with. Good friends and colleagues, or duck behind hedgerows and stuff.
Well, I
thought, what's going on here?
We received kindness where we didn't expect it, but we didn't receive it from where you'd expect it.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes.
In some instances.
Long-term friends and
they sort of went.
They just went the other
way.
Yeah. And did you attribute that to fear, or have you come to another?
No, I think fear is probably that if you had to sum it in one word, I'll go for fear. Yeah. Fear that it was contagious or something.
It's not contagious. They were frightened you were going to like just break down on them.
Yeah.
All you want is someone just to acknowledge it, really, or just to touch your arm, or because you know what the English are like, they don't touch each other, you know. But we're pretty touchy feely people, so yeah. So yeah, it affects your relationships totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't place all of it because it'd be unfair to Jack to burden him with that level of responsibility for the problems we've got, you know, within our own family. But I think there's this sort of black sorrow has settled over the three of us, the surviving three of us, and we don't make a very good cocktail anymore. Whereas 4 was a nice square number, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're pointing to something so significant after a death like this, that everyone who's close responds to their grief in a different way, and then you're trying to support each other, but also pulling away because you're responding in a very particular way that might be different. Perhaps not between the two of you, because you know couples often separate when a child.
High divorce rate, amongst couples. No, we've been together since we were 17 and 19, so 47 years.
We've always argued, so it just gave us something else to argue about, you know. But deep down, we never said anything really injurious hurtful towards one another about Jack, and about how one of us might be more responsible than the other for his death, because we both knew it wasn't our fault.
No, it wasn't our fault. But Dave's unusual for a bloke anyway. He's a nurse, and he's got 4 sisters, and Jack was the same. He got that non-threatening male sort of thing from Dave. But women really like Jack just as a friend, you know, 'cause he was a lovely guy, like Davis. So and plus Dave works in psychology and psychiatry, so I think it all helps.
So you had a little bit of understanding perhaps of what you were going through.
Yeah. I mean, we used to get, when I was working in generic mental health, we get people referred to us sometimes who were bereaved, and they'd been to see the doctor, and the doctor sort of, you know, after a couple of years, they thought, there's something deeper going on here. I'll send them on, and they'd come and see us. And the doctor would be right, you know, it wasn't just that they were bereaved, they also had an underlying emotional health issue and mental health issue that really had doubled with the grief and made them extremely unhappy, you know, extremely distressed. But that said, you know, you can't magic that person back, so you can't solve one problem, and you can only give them a little bit of assistance with the other. But I had the same problem with my own parents. And I touch on it in the book because my dad told me to hurry up and get Jack buried, you know. And it was because, you know, it was a ridiculous thing for him to say, because, you know, there's a manslaughter case, and, you know, he was in another country, and, you know, I was doing everything I could. And moreover, he was my son, you know, I wasn't going to rush to put him in the ground. And so there was a big rift over that. But it was only when I came to realise, well, my dad was in the Second World War, and he saw a lot of people blown up in front of his eyes, and he was a teenager. You know, no wonder he wanted corpses buried, you know. It took me a long while to realise that, because my dad would never talk about that sort of stuff. And, you know, I only found out about it from his brother, really, who said, you know, my dad was never the same after you know, D-Day and all that crap. So we're dealing with trauma going down the family line, really. Some of this might be familiar to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, within the grief recovery method, we say that grief is accumulative, and negatively so. Dealt with. It's like, you know, a pressure cooker. There's one experience that gets pushed down, which so many of the war experiences were. They were really repressed.
And
there's really something else, and then something else, and then suddenly there's this sort of explosion, or the need to keep repressing it, you know, with addictive behaviors or
right. Yeah, we've got that in our family too. We've got everything.
Well, Dave's sister took her own life. One of his sisters, Elizabeth, when she was 31.
You did. I talk about that in the book as well. As you know, it was a very black time, and you feel because you may be aware that if someone in your family takes their own life, your own risk goes up overnight. You immediately become more vulnerable to it yourself. It's just like a learned behavior kind of thing. So it becomes a possibility.
Yes.
And so my sister T and I made a pledge to one another. T is one of my surviving sisters. That neither of us would kill ourselves. So I'm still keeping the promise. So that I did want to go back and renegotiate after Jack died. I thought, well, maybe I'll talk to T, and say, I'm sorry if I let you down on this promise. I can't see that I'm going to be able to keep it, definitely. But I stayed away from her. I didn't have that conversation, but I'm glad now, because I didn't want to give myself permission.
Well, sorry, Debbie.
Heavy conversation.
It's heavy, but we sound so mardy, but we're not. We're quite a sort of hippie-ish family, and I thought we're quite a happy family.
We were.
Well, I think every family has these lines of conflict underneath, and we don't know about them.
No, well, that's a good point actually, because I feel it goes on in every family.
Yes.
And but it's just that I'm quite outspoken and I say the things that shouldn't be said, and then a bit like Sinead O'Connor, I get vilified for speaking up.
Yes.
And all I do is speak the truth.
You're a gift to the world. When you do speak up, you name things that people know are happening, but also don't want to know. By naming them and talking as frankly as you are, you allow people to know what their own suffering is, and in knowing it, you can begin to take care of yourself in a different way.
Well, that's what I try and focus. I've got cancer actually. I've got myeloma, bone marrow cancer, which I've had for nearly 5 years now. So it's pretty difficult to live with, because you can get quite unwell, and the maintenance drugs are pretty heavy duty. So I'm wondering how much that's connected with the trauma of losing Jack, possibly. But now I'm concentrating more on myself, as you were talking about. I'm concentrating more on self-care. And
you did a lot of meditation. You do a lot of meditation.
I've done a lot of meditation.
Hours a day she does sometimes.
I did a Vipassana retreat about 10 years ago. And so I practice that, but I do a lot of online meditation because it's the only way I can keep my head together. It's quite beneficial for me to meditate every day. I think it's doing me some good. I work hard at it.
I do it most days, but I do half an hour. I'm not doing these hours things.
Well, it's because I'm awake a lot in the night. I've got a lot of insomnia from the drugs. So
right.
So instead of reading or watching rubbish on the telly, I meditate for hours on end. So.
And have you found, sort of in that meditative state, that you're able to connect with Jack in any way?
Definitely at the Vipassana retreat, where it was 12 days really, 10 days of not talking or reading, nothing for 10 days. And then I had some very vivid dreams with Jack as an adult, whereas we quite often dream about him as a child. But at the Vipassana retreat, I did dream about him as an adult. But when I meditate now, no, I do sort of talk to him briefly each time. Just say hi, really. But
there have been a couple of sort of what I would call breakthroughs. I mean, we know one. We know a lot of people. We have a friend. She lives in Cornwall now, and she was very, very interested in Zen Buddhism to the point where she was practicing it like almost full time. She was very deeply into sustained meditation, and she to the point where she had some sort of Kundalini crisis, they call it. Have you heard of that? It's basically the snake that resides somewhere around your sacrum, according to the Vedic scripts, and sort of climbs up your spinal cord and then hits your brain, and then you're in a sort of a wonderland, but also a very removed kind. It can be a scary thing.
Yes, I think it depends on your previous experiences, how ready you might be for.
Yeah, I think she'd gone too far too fast.
Yes.
But she did an amazing amount of work on herself because she had cancer, and that's why she got into it. She felt that she was going to die unless she did some specific things, including take a spiritual path. And she's still alive today after 20 years, you know. And they said to her that the particular cancer she had, if it came back, there's no more she could do for her. So she's managed to keep herself in remission for 2 decades. So something worked.
Yes.
Yeah, I do meditate on self-healing a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, to complete the story though, Deb, she came round our place not long after Jack had died, and we just saw her wandering down the street, and we don't often see her, and she was just outside the house, you know, just walking by. So we called her in, and she came and sat down, and she'd been having these Kundalini experiences, and she suddenly went very sort of cold and quiet, and she said, Jack's here, and he wants me to tell you that everything's all right, that he's good, and everything's all right. And then she said, well, as a matter of fact, he made me come to this house. She hadn't been aware of it. She just walked down the street, you know, well, unthinkingly. He arranged this. And then that was the end, really, of the message. And she was quite washed out by it, wasn't she? And then a second experience happened. I had a very old friend, you know, well, she was old, but you know what I mean? We'd known her for decades and decades, Marg, and she lived in Beckenham in Kent. And she wasn't into kids, she likes cats, you know. So while we were raising a family, we didn't see any of Marg, you know. And then when the family grew up, we got back in touch with her, and sure enough, she was just great, and just how we remembered her. And then Chris, her partner, got in touch, goes, Marg's got cancer, she's really ill, and you know. And we said, oh, we'll come and see her. We'll come and see her, you know. So we went down to the flat, and she was very frail and in a lot of pain. And she said, I want you to come because I need you to know that Jack came to me last night in a dream. She said, I knew it was him, but she'd never seen Jack. She'd never met Jack because of this gap, you know.
Yeah.
But she said, he said to me that Deb and Dave, us, had been having a really hard time, but that we were better now. Stronger was the word he used. We were stronger now, and that he was just fine. And that was it. That was the end of the message. And so we hung around for Marg as long as we could, but she was tired. And as we left, I said to Deb, she'll be dead in a week because of the work that's been done by. This is annoying me now that I can't remember his name because I remembered it earlier today. Anyway, a British researcher who'll come, Peter Fenwick, and his wife Elizabeth. They interviewed a lot of people working in hospitals and hospices and so forth about this visitation that people have near death of people they know, or people they, you know, sometimes it doesn't have to be, you know, their own mother turning up, or, you know, something like that. It can be something quite tangential, like Jack was, you know, from the side. And from their research, they said whenever they have this experience, they're usually dead within 7 days. And it's basically a message, or sort of like an avenue opening up. Peter Fenwick said in his own research, and I got in touch with him because I was fascinated by this. He said in his own research, he and Elizabeth uncovered that some people get visited by a person they don't know, but very friendly person. Right. Yeah. He says, you know, it's coming up to your time now, and we're getting ready for you. And would Tuesday at 3 o'clock be all right? I was lying in bed thinking, oh, I've got an appointment. And sure enough, the time of death is Tuesday at 3 o'clock. You know, so it's all arranged.
Yeah. And how did it impact you having these messages from Jack in this way?
Oh, I think it's great. I wish it happened more often, you know.
Yeah, it makes you hungry for more, but it makes you grateful.
Yeah, I'm always open to anything, you know. If somebody says something will work or something's good, I'll give anything a bash, you know. Yeah, I'm not afraid of much. I don't have much fear, you know. So.
And when Jack died, what were your religious or spiritual beliefs?
Dave grew up English Catholic, so
yeah,
he's pretty anti.
I'm lapsed Catholic, so I'm anti-organised religions because I see them as being fundamentally corrupt because they're run by people who pretend that they're in touch with some higher beings and aren't really, you know. There might be one or two deeply spiritual people within those organizations, but they don't generally get to the top, and they don't generally sit in back with a heap of gold around them protecting paedophiles. So
Yes.
have I said enough on that subject? So yeah, but I've always had a sense of the other, I think. You know, I think this is a pretty gross level of manifestation. I think the material plane is pretty low down, and there are some higher things. And we do get little insights into that from particularly vivid dreams or experience with a psychedelic drug, or sometimes just the wonder of nature in a particular moment takes us, and we can feel our level going up, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we live on the sea. We live in Bournemouth on the south coast, so we're literally 30 seconds from the sea. So I find that the best thing for me is to be on the beach, you know, because all any thoughts of the past or future go. There's very much in the moment on the beach.
And
or
it's so vast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more so than nature, really. Although that's fantastic too, you know, obviously, because we grow a lot of vegetables and, you know, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we try and simplify our lives. We live in a small place. We've got
a very simple life.
We could afford a bigger place, but a smaller place is better, I think. Yeah, God, quite modest.
Not very not materialist at all.
Don't walk everywhere. We don't generally.
We've got a car, but we don't really use it. We walk everywhere because we were lucky enough to have the time now.
Yeah.
So we just literally walk everywhere. People think we're crazy, but why not? You know, if you've got the time.
Yeah. And has that been a sort of, in part, a response to Jack's death? There's kind of this desire to simplify.
Probably, yeah. I mean, you know, you concentrate on how it's changed you for the worse, and it has. You know, I'm less tolerant of people, I think, generally, unless I know they've got a genuine problem. I'm probably angrier than I was before Jack died.
It's the anger is pretty hard to. I've been very angry for a long time.
Yeah. And do you have any recommendations? You know, because I've lived with a man who's very angry about his son's death. It's so challenging. Like, it's a daily struggle. How would you say that you've processed the anger?
Well, you have to be responsible for your own emotions. That's all I say. You know, so if you've got anger, it's your anger. It's nobody else's. And so you have to be thoughtful about where you place that anger. And somebody said, I don't know, I think it was Ricky Gervais, said it's all right to get angry. It's what you do with it that's the issue. So you can get as angry as you make your blood boil. That's great. Just don't then act it out to put the pain into somebody else, because you're in pain. That's all anger. I mean, a good friend of ours, Tina, is a counsellor. She says that underneath anger is always fear. I think she's really onto something, maybe 90% of the time, but I don't feel it's 100% true of me. Yeah, it's true of 90% of me, maybe. You know, we're not fearful of death, are we? No. I mean, when Deb got told she got incurable cancer, she didn't cry. You know, she didn't. You know, because myeloma is virtually cancer of the immune system. And when COVID turned up, well, you know, the death rate was 1 in 3 for people with myeloma catching
So I have
COVID,
to be very careful.
Really careful.
This massive need to be around my grandchildren. I've not seen them very much at all.
Yeah. Also, that's an experience of grief for you as well. The loss of that kind of primary relationship.
It is. I can't explain it, but it's like it's in my heart. You know, I really need to see them. To be with them, and I think it's a very beneficial relationship for them. Because Dave and I are still really good fun, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we do things for them. We do.
We make puppet shows.
Yeah, we make shows.
We've written books
videos
for them.
Yeah,
just to try so that they know who we are.
Yeah,
they know who we are.
Yeah.
Very complicated. Sorry, you don't want to hear about all that, but it's just part of the grief.
It is. I think what you're describing is expressions of grief in lots of different ways. And we're used to thinking about grief solely as the consequence of death, but it's not. It's a consequence of many things. And what you're describing is those things all sort of coalescing, you know, because you've all experienced the death of Jack, and that's impacted the three of you differently.
Massively,
and then you've got these other losses coming in, like the loss of your health, so that you can't travel so easily.
No, I can't, no.
Or the loss of the easy relationship with your daughter. And it sounds as if there's a deep experience of loss within you. And of course, grandchildren, they're extensions of our children, and one of your children is here.
Totally true.
Yeah.
So well, I'm hoping that improves, but
because you ain't got long to live, have you?
I haven't got very long to live, so.
Yeah. And how do you feel sort of looking at death, having had this experience with Jack, sort of contemplating your own death? How does that feel?
I'd like to think that I'll see him again, so I'm quite looking forward to that.
Yeah.
You know, and just for some peace of mind, really. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I had a trickish upbringing with very young parents, so I almost parented my parents as I grew up. They were like 18 when they had me, and when my mum died a year ago, she was still like 18, even though she was 81.
Right.
They're very childlike, my parents. So I always had this big sense of responsibility towards my siblings, and so I think I was an over-responsible parent. But that's not always such a bad thing, because I did protect the kids. Maybe over, I don't know. But how do I feel about dying? Yeah. I'm not really ready. I wanted to spend some time with the grandkids before I die. That's all, really.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we were such a fun family. I can't just give up.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him again.
Yeah.
And it sounds as if your experience since his death has made you confident that he is still in existence, you know, because that's a question, like, where, you know, people whose children die unexpectedly, you know, there's that something like, where have they gone? That's been part of your journey, really, hasn't it? Like, it's like exploring that, where has he gone?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just interviewing people, and including those who'd sort of clinically died themselves and then came back to this world, and you know, you just know when you're with them and you ask them the questions that they're telling you the truth. They're not fabricated. This isn't imagination. It's not a dream. Certainly, they're all very keen to emphasize that it's not a dream, because it was far too ordered. Dreams are random, and you know, so they've got their own.
People's recall of these near-death experiences are so vivid, and often, like 20 years on, they can still recall all the details in a way that you just wouldn't with a dream.
Yeah, so that tells me there is another level, you know, and quite often what's relayed is that there's no time over there. At least time doesn't seem to exist. Yeah. So time is a relatively coarse material concept, and ultimately isn't true. So that means that it's not that there's life after death. It's just there's life will stop.
Yes.
And so there's life before, during, and after death. You know, it just, the whole thing is a continuum. It all runs together. So yeah, Jack's around. He always was. We've always been around, really, as souls, I believe. It's not something that I bought into very much. You know, my early adult years, I was just trying to get rid of Catholicism out of my head. Yeah. I certainly felt very nihilistic, like, you know, you live, you die, that's it. But the evidence is too strong for me to continue with that. Having looked at it very dispassionately, it's too strong for me to really sustain that as an argument. When people say it, you know, nothing after you die, I'm thinking, no, you know, I'm happy for you to believe that, but you're wrong. Yes. I think I'm pretty sure you're wrong. So there's a lot out there, yeah, a lot of layers.
Yes, and I think, when we're in this embodied state, trying to even comprehend that, like our minds just can't get around that.
Mm.
And even though you've had these experiences of having messages from Jack, it's still very difficult for the imagination to extend that far to understand what that's about.
Yeah, that's right. It's beyond our ability to conceive it. Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm happy just accepting that I'm too stupid, and it'll all get explained later. It's like when you're a kid and they say, "Oh, I'll tell you when you're older."
Yeah, and
when you're disembodied.
Yeah, when you're disembodied. I'll tell you when you're disembodied. Yeah, nice one.
And if you what kind of advice might you have for someone who's at the beginning of a journey like this? You've walked the path, and you're still experiencing the fallout from it. But for someone who's just heard about the death of someone very close to them, what would be your advice to them?
You should answer that.
Yeah, well, should I? Okay, I'll answer that. I mean, I can only tell you what our own needs were, and even then, it's probably just my needs. I just needed somebody to sort of hang around a bit and to kind of validate my pain. So they didn't have to say anything. It would be helpful if they gave you a hug. Even touching your arm is just great. It's like electric warmth going through your body. It's hard to explain. You hunger for it, So someone just they don't have to counsel you on nothing, because there is no counselor. You can't say, "Oh yeah, I've got the answer," because there isn't one. There isn't one. But just someone to be with you, If they're able to be with you, it's like standing next to a very big, unpleasant fire. You have to be brave to do it, but you feel better as a consequence of helping that person, because they won't forget it. If you stand by them in those early weeks, early days, they'll forever be grateful later on. They'll remember.
Yeah.
That's mine. What do you think, Debbie?
Oh, I really find it difficult to put into words, really.
I mean, the arm one I nicked from you. I remember you saying all they have to do is that, just touch my arm.
It's quite hazy those early days now.
Yeah.
But the intensity, the pain, hasn't faded really.
No.
It's not linear, is it? Grief. It's like things can come flooding back quite quickly. Something happens or some kind of. I don't know what I'm trying to say really.
Any advice?
Advice. I should have advice. Sorry.
No, there's no should.
No, well, it's there's a guy I corresponded with who's an expert on myeloma. Because I thought, being a nurse, I thought I really need to understand this. It's a very complicated disease, cancer, and he knows a lot. So I went on a course that he set up online, and we talked to each other. And he just says, "Hang in there."
Well, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
It sounded a bit trite,
to
say "hang in there," but that basically is all you've got to do. Really.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And have nice people around you.
Yeah. One very tiny step at a time, isn't it? It's very tiny. Yeah. For the first 5 years, you can't tell anybody that it's going to be great. It just isn't like that. And unless it's happened to you, it's. No, you have to say the first 5 years are terrible, really terrible, and 5 to 10 are fucking awful. Yeah. And then 10 to 15 shit. How's that? We're not very encouraging for people to feel like they Well, I think people who are having an experience like this, they know how awful it is, and to hear it named, because so many people say, "Oh, time heals." It's quite trite.
No, I really don't like it when people say that, because it's not so really. No, what happens is, what's happened in my experience is you get stronger. You get, your strength builds up. You're so weak and just so sort of dismantled by it in the first year or 3 or 5 that
you're in pieces. You have no core strength, like your core's disintegrated, and then you gradually pull yourself together, and then you build up. I think, yeah, I can cope. Yeah, I'm going to do this now. Yeah, I can get my head around that. I can, and yeah, you improve. You improve, and that doesn't make you a happier person. Just makes you less likely to want to die.
Yeah, the frustrating thing, the whole timing lately has been pretty bad for me, really, with the pandemic and cancer, because normally I do a lot of voluntary work, and I don't do so much gardening these days for other people. I just can't do it anymore. Do my own. So I don't like to be idle. So I'm a doer, really. So I would have been involved in a lot of stuff. Domestic abuse, needy people. That's our thing, really. I worked for Oxfam for a long time. Yeah. So that's been frustrating, because I don't really go indoors with other people, which has made us a bit weird, probably, because we don't really visit people in their house. We see them outside.
Which means we can only see them in the warmer months. So we sort of like isolate in the winter because of COVID mainly. But even a standard, non-specific virus can really make Debbie very ill, to the point where she'll be ill for a month, so there's no point.
But maybe I should start risking it more now, because I had a stem cell transplant 3 years ago. Yeah, and so really my immunity has taken that long to get back up there.
Yeah.
So really maybe I should start pushing the boat out and get out there a bit more and be like I used to be, because we're big visitors.
We're
travelers,
company with people.
Yeah, we missed all that. We do all the right things to do for getting old. We grow our own food, we meditate, we're very active, blah blah blah. But the things we were missing was socializing and cultural stuff, which we used to do lots of.
Yeah.
We got friends up in Scotland. We got friends all over the shop, so we love to visit, but we've stopped all that. And we're very much here based, which isn't good for your head, really. Not for us.
Although
so maybe I should change things.
Your meditation is allowing you to go within. I had an experience. Right. I spent a lot of time in Ethiopia, and then so I split up with an Ethiopian partner, and it just became too difficult for me to travel there, and that was a big experience of loss. But there was a moment where I just said, okay, so this is my time not to travel, just to go within. And I found meditation, and they've brought me gifts as well, different gifts, and I still do miss that kind of aspect of traveling. But every part of our life brings us pain, but also gifts. Although we're often not keen to look at them, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can sort of like concentrate on what you've lost, and we've still got a lot. Still got our brains just about.
I meditate a lot on gratitude. I mean, I can sit here and list so many things I should be grateful for. I live in one of the best part of the UK, really, for warmth. Well, we don't have any money issues. Lots of things to be grateful for.
Yeah, I guess it's finding that place of gratitude that doesn't beat yourself up. If you feel that you should be grateful, then there's a little bit of beating yourself up there.
That's a good point.
You can acknowledge your pain and the losses too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd really like to say thank you for talking to me.
Thank you for watching the Embracing Miracles podcast. If you would like to know how the grief recovery method can help you move beyond the pain of loss, book a free session with me using the link below.